is Sage session number 20. And for those of you who are live, it is, as Jake said, Christmas Eve. And I say welcome from Colorado. And you guys, what is it?
Aloha from, oh, yeah.
K uh,
It, it
Mele
is,
Mele
Kalimaka.
Mele
yes, that's where I was going.
Not quite that.
How's your Hawaiian?
And
Morning, it's not
it feels about as warm here as I bet
Kali
you guys do. I've got my Christmas shirt on, but I don't know if I can handle it because it's just toasty here. Um, all right. Well, I see folks there. There's Sue. Arna, you're there. So can Sue, can you give us a sign and or a sight and sound check? And then we'll get started. How is the Hawaii Christmas weather?
Well, we've been sitting here waiting for you, watching this rainbow
amazing
that
rainbow.
was just the entire horizon from one
Yeah.
Oh
side to
wow.
the other.
It
Yeah.
was really beautiful.
Wow.
And it was raining all morning, but right now it's clearing up.
So anyway, my brain woke up. It's Mele Kalikimaka.
Okay. We say Merry Christmas to you. All right. Sue says we're good.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for being back with us again. Sage session 20, and good to see some folks with us live. I realize it's in the middle of the height of Christmas preparations, I imagine, which I found myself in and slid in here at the last minute. But so grateful to, and as is often the case, we are jumping from a discussion that Jake started on his blog, Jake Eagle at Substack. You can find it there. And this would have been Sunday, December 21, I believe. Okay.
Right. Right.
And you want to give us an intro to the topic?
Yeah, this was something that was spurred on by you, Kevin, because you were talking about how your experience of relating to people and in particular your kids was really shifting over this period of several months. And you talked about how you were noticing yourself asking different questions and that the questions you were asking the kids, instead of what I call habitual questions, like, how are you? How did it go? Did you have a good time? Those are habitual questions that we all ask on autopilot. Instead, you were asking what I would call reflective questions. And when I say that, I mean you're asking the other person to reflect before they respond,
Mm.
which to me is, for one, really respectful. Two, it calls forth greater depth from the other person. It suggests that they have something to say other than, yeah, it was good. Yeah, I had fun. No, I didn't enjoy it. It really asks them to look inward, get in touch with how they're creating meaning, what's going on for them, and then share themselves in a deeper way. And when we do this, the result, as you talked about last week, is a very different kind of connection. And so you talked about it, I thought about it. It was one of those things that Hannah and I have been aware of for 20 years, but we never highlighted it until you were saying how significant this was. And then I sort of stepped back and I thought about what's going on, and that this is it's a very unique part of SAGE. If you think of SAGE as a psychological model, most psychological models are almost entirely focused on us looking inward. This is asking other people to look inward without telling them anything about them. So that was the origin of the article.
As we look at Sage and the language of Sage language being not only subjective, but taking full ownership. And I continue to experience the reprogramming evolving in myself. And then, yeah, as you said, seeing it in others and around me. And I get to have this, what feels like an acute melting pot of experience with kids on a daily basis, with really with a lot of the same friends that we have close relationships, and I am speaking sagely, but then yeah, experiencing. I've for a while been experiencing what I would say is benefits depth that I didn't quite comprehend, and you guys helped me flesh that out to look at, let's say, the office meeting, to use an example. And for me to come out and go, "Oh my gosh, let me tell you about the office meeting. It was terrible. It was a waste of time. It was," and of course, what I'm doing is not telling you about the meeting, but telling you about me. That's the first revelation for me in this concept. But now, yeah, as you said, Jake, doing this with friends and family, but my kids are an easy one to point to. And where I asked my daughter how her performance that she did, and to say, "Hey, her name's Serene, in this case, Serene, how was it?" I set her up to respond with her saying what it is. She's speaking to something subjective, but saying it objective. And I set her up. That's how we speak. That's how I have spoken. And now, yeah, as I change that and not even try to get her to go past, "Well, it was great to me, Dad," to ask her to even circumvent that concept and ask, "So, Serene, how'd you experience the performance today?" And first off, it does what I'm doing right here, and the constant pauses to get my sage orientation on and speak accordingly, even if she's not aware of sage. And I've done this with other people now a lot, and to watch them pause. And they don't seem to really consciously comprehend how I phrased it, but by proxy, just to verbalize the response in accordance with how I asked, "How did you experience it?" And watch them pause and go, "Goodness," and they'll usually stumble a little bit. And they'll go into and start talking about emotions that they felt, um, and subjective perspective as opposed to it is. And then the next step that occurred to me is not only am I helping them sage themselves and take ownership, have personal agency in their response, I'm helping them, I'm helping foster in them checking in with themselves in a way that I think I spent most of my life never doing. And then realizing if I'm the catalyst for them checking in with themselves over and over, day in and day out, not only am I helping them orient themselves in this in sage, even without them knowing, but I am perceiving that I get the association. So I am now this person who evokes who they evoke a feeling of connectedness with themselves with.
Right.
I'll stop there. 'Cause I'm still discovering, but that's yeah, that concept I am blowing myself away with.
Yeah, and I think the way you described it is my experience too, that the other person experiences something that's atypical, a level of
Yeah.
depth, uh, thoughtfulness, a pause. Essentially, they're coming off autopilot. And for people who are wondering, well, what's the perfect sentence to ask? It's not exactly that there's a formula. I mean, there are things that we shouldn't do if we want to invite somebody to think deeply. For example, we don't want to ask binary questions. A question that somebody can answer yes, no, it was good, it was bad. Those questions don't invite any depth. So there are things that we can do, and we'll talk about them. But the main thing that we can do is be in the sage orientation ourselves, because as soon as I enter the sage orientation, I slow myself down. And then this process that Kevin's describing is fairly natural. This is not, I'm not having to think a lot about what's the perfect question to ask. And what I'm doing is I'm asking questions that invite the other person to look inward instead of look outward. So instead of talking about the event, which is fine if you want to tell me about the event, I'm asking, how did you make meaning of whatever happened, of an event you went to? Or how did you make meaning of a conversation? or what stands out for you about that experience? And again, you can't answer that question with a simple yes or no. So you're more inclined to invite the other person to think more deeply. And that really is a big part of what's happening here. And there's one other thing I'll say, which is that I perceive this as very respectful because it assumes the other person has depth. So I'm simply acting as if the other person does have depth and they are able to tell and share the way they interpret things. And I want to hear about that. And it consistently seems to be something people appreciate.
Of course, those of you who are with us live, any thoughts, questions, feel free to put them in there. I'm not going to wait for them, but we are monitoring the chat as well and love to connect with you. This, what you just said, Jake, I did speak in this orientation to somebody who I would say is, yeah, depth or just, not connected with self. And they stumbled around and couldn't really say anything other than, I don't know. I said,
Mm.
"Oh, okay." It was a younger child, and I don't know. And so, just to testify to that, it feels well to the question to how we do the questions. If you again, everybody, it was Sunday, December 21, where when Jake posted this blog that we're discussing right now, and in the comments, a friend of ours, Peter Kesling, asked in there. He said, "Okay, so I'm about to have a family gathering. I think it was his birthday." And he said, I often will lead the conversation towards hopefully a deeper something of depth and kind of the highs and lows. What's been a high in your life lately or a low in your life lately? To which somebody could respond with, it was, and not being a sage orientation. And he was asking for some ideas on how to ask a question that would foster either individually or as a group that self-aware or somebody look at themselves, as you said, Jake. And I really appreciated and in thinking through it, I have some that I'm gonna be using in the next few days over Christmas.
Yeah, I like your responses. If people want to see that, if you go to the Substack article and you look, you'll see there's a comment, and then Kevin answered with several suggestions about the way you can use language. And I also answered later, Peter, and shared some more suggestions about how you can do this. Um, but I just want to remind people it's not so much that it's a formula as much as it is a state of being, a state of being of receptivity and curiosity. And if you are in that state, these questions will arise fairly naturally, I think. One of the ones that we use is because we both know Sage. Hannah will often just say to me, "Well, how are you interpreting what happened?"
Hmm.
And and that always does two things. I remind myself that I am interpreting, and as soon as I realize that, I look at whatever the topic is more open-minded, more curious. Oh, well, I was interpreting this, but I realized I could interpret it in many ways. So I find that to be a super efficient way to bring myself into Sage.
I think of another way I experienced this. We went to a memorial this week uh, for someone who lives on this island and had a big, beautiful ranch overlooking the ocean. And I kept bumping into people that I knew. There were probably 100 people there, um, all of which kept saying, "How are you?" And and I began to ask them if they'd noticed the beauty
Mm.
that we were in, the, the hand-built rock walls everywhere, and the
Mm.
fields that just went forever. And I found that that put myself and helped them get more into the present moment and really notice rather than just be nervous about meeting people or uh, asking habitual questions. It was a much deeper experience.
You also invite people into connection with their senses,
Yes,
which I notice you do that often.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
The curiosity when you ask a question like that, Hannah, that's I am also finding that when I ask these questions that really require someone to connect with themselves, when they come back speaking slowly, maybe stumbling over their words to really connect with themselves, what they come forth with, I am more authentically curious in than ever. There's nothing that they could tell me, especially if they were just telling me about the event. Now they're telling me about themselves and they're sitting there looking off to the side, as I often am, even here on this on this, looking off the side thinking. And when they come back, I feel we talked about this in a previous show. I feel not only curious, but kind of with their willingness to engage with themselves, I invite myself in. It feels open, and I'm literally curious. I find myself more curious than ever, and I'll ask uh, deeper questions. And I did this recently with my daughter. There was some family drama that I was not a part of, but she was sharing some with me. I wish I had asked that question. Now it's Serene. You guys know her, and she is has a sage or is understanding of sage orientation. I probably would have said, how did you experience? But I like that. How did you interpret it? By proxy is stating, making a claim. I don't know a better way to say that. Of it is an interpretation. Whatever you experience is an interpretation. And we did end up discussing that. Oh, she heard a story. She didn't hear because she was hearing third hand about or second hand about something. She heard one side of somebody's story, something that they were attaching meaning to whatever happened that we'll never really even know. But especially in those relational issues, I really like Hannah that. How are you interpreting? Great setup, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, in Serene's case, she's familiar enough that I don't think she'd even hesitate if you asked her that. Yeah.
I
Right.
I was going to mention that. I know. I mean, we've had people. I mean, I think you guys have for a long time, but we had people even here as we've been doing these podcasts and the live audience, and people testify or share that they can discomfort themselves with trying to speak this way. Maybe you guys tell me your perspective. Maybe it's a little unfair. People are used to me asking even before sage orientation that I'm a question asker and maybe uh, if I can, as humbly as I can say, think it's some depth or whatnot. So maybe that flavors my experience because my experience that I'm about to share is that I have not yet had someone who's not aware, familiar with sage. When ask questions in this way, I've not had any. Uh, they haven't asked about that. They haven't said, "Oh gosh, that's weird," and that you would ask that way. They just roll with it 100% of the time. Now, again, maybe I've got a little bit biased with the people that I'm in communion with or in union with, but when you just ask it, so far I've just had people roll with it, even if they stumble around.
I think it has a lot to do with our comfort with the language in this
Mm,
orientation, and that people who think that they won't be well received bring their own anxiety to the interaction, and that the listener is responding in part to that anxiety. But my experience is similar to yours. I never have anybody go, "Boy, that's a weird way to talk."
yeah, yeah.
People just nod and pause and respond.
Right.
Again, looking at this to boil it down, I mean, it does feel simple, whether it's feels easy to who, to you guys who are listening, I don't know. To me, it seems simple. I'm simply pausing before I engage with somebody, a kid, a friend, a client, or whatever. And instead of asking their how was whatever, how do you feel? How do you, just these same questions, habitual questions, as you say, Jake, that I'm simply asking. So how was how did you feel about whatever? How did you experience? How did you interpret? Whatever you want to play with. I've done plenty of how did you feel about that, especially with my younger kids. So how'd you feel about the finals that you had at school today? And they'll generally answer in worst case scenario, yeah, as you said, Jake, I had a younger kid go, I don't know. He couldn't check in with him. So he was unaware or not able to
We've seen that.
comprehend.
We've had that with a couple of adults in our labs where there are people who are extremely disconnected from their physical
Senses.
sensation and their senses. And when we ask them things, they'll respond like the person you're describing, where they go, I really don't know. Um, and I think that when that happens, we need to use metaphor or find other ways to help them connect with themselves, if that's appropriate in the role that we're in. So if you're talking to, for example, your grandson, it might be helpful to find ways for him to connect so that he actually does know how he feels. Um,
Okay, I can own this. I am forgetting myself today. It's not that long ago, 4 years ago, in intense marriage counseling, where we were doing 2-hour sessions, I think every week, and in talking with the therapist there, the questions aimed at me that meant to evoke kinda get to the emotions, how I was feeling, that was my answer. I don't know. I mean, I'm here, I'm aware, I'm sober, I get what you're saying. I don't know. Revelatory, that's part of what I feel like I've helped myself come to this place was through some of the discovery there of I don't know. That was she prescribed at that point Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart and the 87 emotions and said study it. And I benefited myself to go in and read about one and see what emotions I resonated with and add other understandings of emotions to my understanding just to understand what am I feeling. And now when somebody asks, I can. But my gosh, even as host of the big self-help podcast, I did a lot of I don't knows initially, not connected to my emotions. Does that track?
yeah, it does. And for me, the I don't know or I'm confused is a form of very subtle repression. So the I don't know is also I don't want to know. And oftentimes I don't want to know because I'm imagining a consequence. If I were to tell you how I'm really feeling, I concern myself about what the consequence would be. And that's why this is easier in the SAGE orientation, because we start with this idea of taking away praise and blame and recognizing that whatever you're going to say is about you. It's not about me, it's about you and your experience. Even if you're talking about me, you're talking about your projection. So when people feel more relaxed and they have more permission to not worry about the consequences, they're more likely to figure out how they feel, how they're making interpretations, what's going on for them. And so, particularly with young people where we have a influence or role in their lives, I think it's really valuable to help them get in touch with whatever they're feeling, however they're interpreting things, and that whatever it is, it's okay.
We do an experiment in our retreats where we help people slow down and begin to pay attention. And we usually have like an object, like a seashell or a stone, and everyone has one, and we move slowly around the room and trade objects, but in slow motion, and then have eye contact, and then move on to the next person. And that's been very helpful to help people really slow down, get in touch with themselves, and their senses. It's a beautiful experiment.
And then the part of it you're not sharing is then Hannah has us speed up.
Right.
So we start going faster and faster, walking faster, and trading whatever the object is with other people faster.
Yes.
And as we do that, we stop making contact.
Right.
We don't think we can make contact and proceed quickly. It's a really powerful metaphor of how we go through life.
Right. Right.
That is probably another show. We could do one just on slowing down.
Yeah.
I continue to be aware of and employ that in my life, and without going down that avenue, I mean, just a quick thing of so often I am in a hurry. I hurry myself. It's how I've done life. I've treated life as a sprint, not a marathon, and I can still do that by myself on a Saturday afternoon with no reason. I just have a handful of things to do, and I will be speeding up, and then I will knock something over or do something, make a mistake, and curse under my breath. And it's, of course, now the awareness of going, bro, what are you, Kevin? What are you doing? What, be here now, as Ram Dass would say. What, enjoy the moment. Slow down. You're not. It's seems so elementary to me, and is revelatory. And just as we've talked about, and you guys have helped me with talking, my propensity to emote, to get excited, and to start talking faster, which I have developed the capability to do. I can be on a show and take a topic and run a mile a minute and come up with the next question and talk, 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 talk. And as you said, it's so much you can't take it in. And if I slow down, which feels, I feel goofy with, or have at least in the past, and think about my words, I use a tenth less words and get the point across X amount more sufficiently. And it's cultural backwards math. Is that fair? It is. I can't say that. To me, it seems counterintuitive to our culture, and yet I'm experiencing the benefits on all sides of slowing down.
And you said when you speak fast, you said, and you can't take it in. And we could change that to you can't take me in,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm going a million miles an hour, and you really can't sort of experience me. You can't fully take in what it is I'm trying to share. I'm probably overwhelming my
Hmm.
audience, so to speak. Yeah.
Hmm.
When when we went to this memorial, it brought back a memory of mine when I was in massage school. The man who brought hospice to Santa Fe, where we lived, talked about the people who that they were working with that were there on their last days. And he said that they would always say, it was gone like that. Life was gone like that. It was gone in a moment, or it went by in a moment. And to me, the lesson is to slow down and take in each moment, so that we have a deeper, more connected experience of life every day, so it doesn't go back by so quickly.
So I don't go by so quickly, right? Yeah.
Right.
And this idea of using sage language is very different than other mindfulness practices where I'll go and I'll sit on a cushion for 20 minutes and I do connect with myself and I do slow myself down. But an hour later, I can be going at full speed again. With sage language, every time I speak, in essence, I am slowing myself down.
Right.
I am providing a chance to connect with myself and my surroundings and the people in my life more deeply than when I'm not in the sage orientation.
And I'm consciously thinking through my words as I speak rather than on autopilot.
I'm humoring myself right now, thinking of people listening to this on the recording and us talking about speaking slow and doing so, and if they speed it up.
Right.
Gotta put these guys on, like, 3 times the speed.
Yeah,
Um,
let's get to the point.
yeah, yeah, fair enough. I I wonder, you were talking about the labs, about doing a role play, because I have not experienced a confrontation in a long time, a emotive conflict between myself and someone else. I could imagine that some people might look to use this to de-escalate a conflict. And so here is your kid, your spouse, coworker, whatever, who is upsetting themselves and come forth and says, I think you're a jerk. And you say, "Oh, you were a jerk in that meeting." So, okay, well, gosh, how did you interpret the meeting? I interpret that you're a jerk. Um, that some people may not be able to check in, but I would think that coming back, it would have a great possibility, like your best shot at de-escalating and connecting, hopefully, by employing this, even if it takes a couple efforts in the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We have a model. I won't go into a lot of detail, but it's a model to de-escalate conflict. And the key is that when someone's coming at you energetically, you feel them coming at you with aggression or accusation or blame. The tendency we all have, and it's very deeply wired, the tendency we have is to push back. No, I didn't say that. No, I didn't do that. No, you misunderstood. And that creates this clash of energy. What we want to do, if we to de-escalate, is we want to invite, tell me more. Why do you think that? What is it that I said that resulted in you being so upset? And each time we ask a question, you can almost see it. The person just de-escalates more with each question. I've never gone more than 3 questions without someone coming back into a level where we can have a conversation. So I agree with you completely. I think this is a great way to de-escalate situations. And it is just simply not reacting. There's no need to defend ourselves because the other person's not saying anything about us. They're just telling us about the way they're experiencing life, the world, the way you're experiencing me. I don't need to defend myself. I just want to understand how you're doing what you're doing.
I hear you now. I did not have this understanding back at the as I we unraveled my marriage. I defended. I did. That's what I did. So when I said X, this is what you thought, and it was defense. And I'm guys, because I'm my identity. I
Right.
am insecuring myself to the greatest level and defending. I did not. We'll never know what could have been. Uh, in It feels like a superpower. I mean, back to this initial concept too. Not only a superpower to possibly, uh, yeah, tone down an energetic conversation, but again to connect with each other. I feel kind of right now like I have this superpower. I can go around and there's people in the room, and I'm going to go around and ask them about an event that's going on or something that happened in the past, or where what they've been involved in recently, and how are you feeling about X, or how are you experiencing X, or so I heard XYZ, how'd you interpret, and have the best conversations ever for me, the ones I'm most curious about, at least, because I've spent a lot of time with the how to win friends and influence people idea of asking questions. And now I'm a professional question asker. I get paid to do that, but I have still done it in the, as we talk about, the old operating system, OS2. And now in doing them, I did a show this morning with a lady, big selling author and whatnot. And as I ask questions of this nature and watch them, it's an interview, and let them step back and go, huh, never thought about it that way. And then what comes back, I am more curious about than ever in my question asking. And I don't feel like it's a formula or a tactic. Now I just feel that the concept is a formula or tactic. I feel that I am more authentically curious
Yeah.
than ever. I'm on a discovery with them to discover themselves.
Nice.
And wow. Wow.
Was the show this morning related to retire often?
Son of a gun. Sure was. Yeah, there's my prop.
I thought that was just color coordinated with your shirt.
No, that was me lost in the Christmas spirit and rushing in to sit down here. Yeah, it was. Retire often, which we talked about the mind shift of identity. If you were not wrapped around your vocation, what do you do? That a great thing, social event. How are you? What do you do? What do I
Right.
do? Well, I contemplate a lot.
Right.
I, I I have a lot of beverages. I prepare beverages pretty much all day long. Uh, yeah, I just superpower. I don't know a better way to do it. And yeah, I appreciate you saying it's not a formula. I don't feel that way. I feel it's the most authentic inquiry I've ever had with a human.
Yeah.
This concept. It. I said it. Um yeah, I it feels I like how you titled it. It feels well, I look to you guys. Thanks for the gift of this orientation and the value I feel in the connection with myself, with the present, and now with the people in my life, connecting with them and also watching the connection that they are having with themselves
Right.
and seeing them walk out the connections with other people. And as we talked about with Serene, her coming and testifying to me and going, Dad, I have this great like people are so attracted to me over and over and over. She's sharing and she's like, I don't know what's going on. And I we perceive this is it. This is what's going on. S.A.G.E is what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Connection. Connection. Yeah.
Great.
It's our favorite gift. There's our Christmas gift to everyone. Yes.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know a better send off to Christmas. There we go. Merry Christmas to us. And say it again, Hannah.
Oh, Meli Kalikimaka.
That.
Yep. Mele
Yep.
Kalikimaka.
Yep. All right.
Merry Christmas.
Yep.
Great to be with you. And I'm not sure if we have a show next week, but we'll be back soon.
Yeah.
Be back soon. Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.